Welcome back to the Hockey Show, and the Florida Panthers are moving on to the next round after they have defeated the Boston Bruins, the President's Trophy winners, the two past President's Trophy winners, going head-to-head in round one, and the Panthers win the election, and they are moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs in round two, and the Boston Bruins got to polish their clubs as they're off to the courses, and maybe Bergeron is going to be there for a lot longer. His retirement's right around the corner. Who knows? That's a whole thing for the offseason, but right now we're talking about this series. 4-3 is what they win in the series and the game last night in Game 7 in overtime after the Panthers shut the door and they put the Bruins to sleep. So, ever since Game 1, I've been thinking this is going to happen, and I've said it before Game 1 and during the series when I made my videos updating on the games, that this is what I saw coming, and it's exactly what happened, is the offensive specialist beats the well-built generalist, and that is exactly what happened. The Panthers, look at all the games recently. Look at the 3-game comeback that they won. Look at them. They win the 7-5 game. They win the 6-3 game. They win the 4-3 game. And that is exactly what the freaking Panthers did. Look at it. Look at the games that they won. It is exactly what I said was going to happen. The Bruins, they are a team. Yes, I'm going to make a whole video talking about the curse of the President's Trophy, which I don't really believe in, but I do believe in, but I think it exists for a different reason, but I'll talk about that in another video one day. But basically, the Bruins, yes, they are very well built. They are such a good built team. 3 lines of Orlov, Lindholm, or McAvoy on the ice. Up front, Tyler Bertuzzi, Pastrnak, Marchand. I mean, the list goes on for freaking ever. They got Taylor Hall on this team, who's a former Hart winner, on top of everything, right? This team is so well put together, but the issue is that they never really leaned in one, they don't lean in one direction, where you could look at like the Tampa Bay Lightning, let's say, where they do have all the lines, but they're kind of built from the, they have all the key pieces where they've got the superstar guys up front that are going to lead the team in Kucherov, Braden Point, and Steven Stamkos and their playoff performers, like the Colorado Avalanche. Speaking of the Avalanche winning the Cup last year, they had the depth that was showing up. They had the superstars who score points. They had the defense generating offense, and they had a goaltender net who could be competent, right? The Bruins, let's look at the Bruins. Did they have all those pieces? I think they did, but the issue is that they didn't lean in one direction. Where you take a look at the Avalanche last season, not this year, last season, they had the offensive depth, and their defense was mainly used to produce offense. They were heavily leaning in the offensive direction. The Bruins, they didn't. They were kind of like, we're going to win the 3-2 game. We're going to shut down, you know what, not the 3-2 game. We win the 3-0 game. We win the 2-0 game. We win the 4-1 game, right? They are a generalist team that is going to shut down the other team and score a goal. They're not going to be shut out, but they're going to shut out the other team. Except when you've got a team who can't be shut out, and that is the Florida Panthers, the offensive specialists. They go in there. They are the dagger and the sword. They wield 2 weapons, and they go in there and they mess them up. And that's exactly what happened this series. And also, not just that, but this is why I think people in the offseason saying like moving Huberdeau and Weegar was a terrible move. In my opinion, I think Weegar is a weird part, but I thought it was exactly what they needed to do. The Florida Panthers and the Calgary Flames even, and taking a look at a team like Toronto, my issue with these teams that they don't really have those emotional, like gritty playoff performers, right? That's what the Panthers were missing in that series against the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 2 for the last few years, is that they go in there and they don't have those guys like a Matthew Tkachuk, they had Carter Verhaeghe, but the superstar guy in Matthew Tkachuk, and now Brandon Montour showing up, being the guys who are going to grit it out and fight. They're not going to give up. They're going to be emotional. They're going to be mean. They're going to be aggressive. That's what a guy like Huberdeau lacks. Huberdeau is a guy who's going to get you 115 points in the season, I guess, if he's on a good team. But He's not a playoff performer. He's not the guy who's going to. He's not the brave soldier, right? Who's going to put his neck out there to try to be the brave one and get them the win, right? He's just not. He's the guy that's going to get the puck. He looks for someone else to get the puck in the zone. He passes it to someone else and set them up really well, right? Matthew Tkachuk is the guy who's going to spearhead the operation. That's what he did in this series. I think he ended up with, 5 goals, 5 assists, or 5... something like that. He got a lot of points this series, and that's exactly what they need. That's someone, and look at Barkov. Barkov not doing a whole lot either. So their core last season is not a playoff core. This is now. This is a team built for the playoffs with the guys like Verhaeghe, guys like Matthew Tkachuk especially, and now they move on to the next round. The Bruins, their issue is that they didn't. For one thing, the curse, sort of, but not really. I just think the Bruins, they just never felt as if they were in control. Ever since Game 1, you can see Florida felt like they might not have been in control. Like, the Bruins were definitely able to keep them calm and not able to score, and Ullmark was good. And, I definitely don't blame Ullmark for this series. But Florida, they felt like their heart was more in it. They felt more like, we got to do this. We're going to upset them. But the Bruins, their giving greatness gave them some wins, right? In this series, they're given best season ever, and they are a well-built team. Got them some wins in this series when the Florida Panthers weren't there giving it their all, right? And they couldn't get past that barrier. But once the Florida Panthers were able to put a crack in the dam and they finally got the flood going, they couldn't be stopped. The Bruins, they just were never in control of this series in my eyes. In my eyes, they never were in control. Sure, maybe for 5 minutes of a game. But in my opinion, they're given greatness and they're well-built at it. Their well-built team was able to keep the Panthers from scoring 7 goals every single game for the first 4 games of the series. But once Game 5 happened, it felt like Florida finally figured out how to score goals, and they figured out what they needed to do to win, and the Bruins couldn't handle it anymore. They were able to keep them tame, and they were able to get their wins and keep the Panthers off their backs, but finally the Panthers were able to break through, and they did get those goals. And Florida, from the words of John Cena, never give up, and they never did. From being down 3-1, even in Game 1, they lost Game 1, but in my eyes, they were the better team in Game 1. They definitely were in Game 2. Games 3 and 4, the Bruins win them, but I gotta say, once again, the Panthers, they were there. They were there. They looked hungry. They looked mean. They looked ready to win the games. They just couldn't get the puck in the back of the net enough. And the Bruins, they're giving greatness with Marchand, Pasternak, Bergeron, Krejci, Taylor Hall. All these guys on this team were able to get some goals and get them the wins because they are good. But the issue with them, which is strange because the Bruins are not usually the team that have this issue. Usually the Bruins are the team that is the ones that don't have the problem of being I don't want to say weak, but being not weak, the team without heart in it. Usually the Bruins, that's kind of their attitude. That's their thing, is that they're the team. They're the mean, gritty team. They hit you. They're mean. They're nasty. That's what the Bruins usually are. This series, I never saw that once with Marchand, with any of them. I don't know if the team's just getting older. And, maybe they're, the Bergeron and Marchand are, kind of getting, and Krejci are kind of getting soft, maybe. And maybe guys like Tyler Bertuzzi wasn't as nasty as I thought he'd be. I mean, watching him in Detroit and his anger and emotions there, that's kind of the type of guy you need for the Bruins to show up in those games that you see. You look at his highlights, and he's a mean, nasty guy, and he just never really tapped into that, in my opinion, especially Marchand. And the team never got going. It felt as if they were okay, round 1, we're okay. We just got to go in there, and they were getting their wins. I mean, right for them for having the confidence of being yeah, whatever. Because looking lazy, they almost won the series, but they finally, the legs of the Panthers overcame them, and it's exactly what I said was going to happen. Florida, their guys were showing up. All lines were showing up. Everyone on the team looked like they had a purpose, from guys from the top of the team of Tkachuk and Verhage and Montour getting getting those points, getting the goals, getting the attitude from the guys, from the shutdown guys of Barkov and Lundell. What they made up in not getting a lot of points, Barkov and Lundell did amazing at shutting down the Boston Bruins. When they were on the ice, it was amazing to see what they were doing. It's the type of thing that I feel like a lot of hockey fans don't appreciate, but someone like me who's, I played hockey, but I'm not anything special. I've nothing special, but understanding like the details of the game that I feel like the casual fan doesn't understand towards like actually being on the ice and seeing what Lundell and Barkov brought to this team might not be in points, but what they could do to shut down guys and just keep the puck in the other zone. Maybe they're not doing the craziest plays and running things around and getting the craziest shots off the crossbar or something, or the biggest passes, but their shutdown, able to keep the puck in the other zone, is amazing to watch from those guys. Bobrovsky showing up, the depth guys in DePaul and Dalpe. I don't know why I kept thinking his name was something else. Dalpe. Louis Strainen was such a key factor in this series. He's such a good young guy. They got another young guy, him and Lundell. I think they're both Finnish. Gonna be amazing one day. Well, both of them are amazing now, but gonna really break through the ceiling at some point one day. This team as a whole, Bobrovsky looking like a superstar, sometimes maybe not, but just being good enough to get them over the hump. And really, just the whole team showed up every game, and they had their heart in it, where the Bruins, I just can't say they did. The Bruins, they just looked, I don't want to say they looked lazy. That's really it. They looked lazy. They looked like they didn't care. And it looked like their hearts weren't in it. Like, where's that team from their Stanley Cup run against the St. Louis Blues? When I was watching those games, you go look at the highlights. That team, they're skating hard. They're moving those legs. They're going. They're hitting. Their emotions are in there, right? This just didn't have it, and I don't know if it's because, like, they're missing a guy like a Torrey Krug on the back end instead of, like, guys like Lindholm, McAvoy, and Orlov, where they're kind of calm-minded and they're just getting their job done. They just didn't have a guy like Torrey Krug, which they do have in Marchand and Bertuzzi, that just never really felt like they got, like, I feel like they're missing that defenseman like a Erik Karlsson, like a Torrey Krug, where they get the puck in their own zone, they'll skate it down the ice. And I know Orlov and all those guys can do that, but it just never, there's a different mindset when it comes to a guy like a Makar, and just kind of the energy that brings. And their energy was low. It just felt like they were needing to be plugged in at some point, and they never got recharged. And that's really what led to it, is that they just had a lack of care by the looks of it. Like, they just never had a drive. And that's really, I think this comes down to, is they were lazy, and they don't lean in one direction. Where the Panthers, they're hungry to score. They're offensive specialists, and they got the job done in that category. A defense and stuff might not have worked out, but they're going up against a team that I would say is the same way, but is a lot more not as clean as the Boston Bruins, and I like their odds, and I'm going to make that video very soon. So that is all I got to say. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you've made it this far, please, I'm begging you, pick up your free subscription. Please just do it. And until next time, too sweet, have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.